second. All right, everyone get ready. Okay.
Oh, how are you? Hi, how are you?
Do you want to see?
I'm fine, thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Brookklyn Tea Party for our June 22nd, 2025 meeting. Today we're going to have State Senator Steve Chan, who was recently elected last year, right? Last year for State Senate. It's been a long time since we had a full State Senator since Marty Golden, which was, I believe, the last time was 2018 or so.
Thank you.
You know, each and every day we're trying to gain inroads in Brookklyn. We have 3 assemblymen, we have a State Senator, City Council seat. So let's hope we could keep on continuing and building upon that with Republican and conservative candidates, because at the end of the day, this city is totally out of control. We are in a spiral if we're going to have that new guy running for mayor. What's his name again?
Zohan
Mamdani. Yeah, him. The socialist. Huh? Wouldn't that be grand? Well, we hope we have Eric Adams. Oh, God help us. But what could you choose? I mean, Curtis, of course, but who knows? In a 4-way race, you never know what could happen. So with that being said, we need to continue on building on that foundation so we could keep on making the city hopefully go back to sanity, because it's totally insane. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for our guest speaker for today, State Senator Steve Chan.
Hi everybody, it certainly is a pleasure to see everybody here today, and certainly a pleasure to be here. Now, I've been trying to be here for a little while, and it's been, you know, just as my luck would have it, it was actually the longest session year in Albany in the last 20 years or so, because of the budget delays by 45 days, and we haven't seen that delay by that much in 15 years. And there was a lot of components about the budget that I didn't like. But first, I'm going to tell you a joke that I told last night at a party. There was a rabbit and a snake. They were upstate, going to the bathroom together in the forest. And the rabbit said to the snake, "Excuse me, sir, you know, I've never seen a mirror in my life. I don't know what I am. Can you tell me what am I?" And the snake says, "Oh, well, okay. Well, you're very beautiful white fur, and you got this fluffy little white tail, you have beautiful pink nose, and you have these beautiful long ears. Wow, you're really beautiful. You're a rabbit." The rabbit being very, very happy to hear that. And the snake says, you know, while I'm at it, can you tell me what I am? I've never seen a mirror either. And the rabbit says, "Well, let's see, you're slimy, you're low to the ground, you slither, you look evil, you're mean, you got this hissy tongue, you got these big fangs. Oh, I know, you're a politician." So anyway, that's just something I heard along the way, right? So the moral of the story is, nobody wants to hear from a politician. Nobody wants to hear from a politician. I look at myself as the neighbor that South Brookklyn chose to represent me, to bring their voices, bring their feelings and sentiments to Albany. And when I went up there, I was very vocal. I think I said more in 2 weeks than my opponent, my former opponent, my predecessor did in 2 years. I wasn't happy about the foundation aid. We got short of $54 million. That's the arts and enrichment music programs for our kids in their schools. That's $54 million. All I know is HOCO had initially suggested the foundation aid formula to be very low. We fixed that, and it became quite high. And she had a lot of $94 million extra dollars to our schools for enrichment programs such as that, after-school programs, music, other activities, art. Things that make kids like to go to school. That's very important, because when kids like to go to school, that's half the battle. They're in school. That's the hardest part, get them to school. When she's short, well, she had $597 million. The next thing I know, the Senate 1 budget, there's $54 million missing from that. I'm like, where the hell's the money? Well, apparently it went to other counties, other cities, like Rochester, like Yonkers. But I was very unhappy about that, so I was very outspoken on that. I voted no on that bill, by the way. I said it right on the Senate floor, I'm voting no on behalf of South Brookklyn, because that shorts us, this borough, by about $11 million. And you know, we got to fight for every penny, because especially now, we have an influx of non-English speaking students. They're here. I get it, right? Some of them are stealing an education, some of them are not. Regardless, I do believe that they deserve an education, and we do have to help them, but it makes it a little bit harder when we're shorted the money. So next year, we're going to fight for that some more. We're going to try to increase the foundation aid. I'm a steadfast proponent of education, as some of you folks are having. I volunteered in our schools for 10 years as a member of the school leadership team, as well as the Title I chairperson in PS 112. I was the PTA president over at Kristen McCullough Middle School. And that's how I got into politics, unfortunately. I was just a happy PTA president in McCullough, dealing with 1,000 Title moms and dads. And if you know that school, that's what they are. They're all Title moms and dads. So they kind of mentioned me to the GOP and they approached me. And I said, no, I'm not running for this. I'm retired. You guys know I'm a cop 27 years. In fact, I was a patrol supervisor right here in this precinct for 3 years. I said, no, I'm retired. And this is like Shawshank Redemption. I got out of jail after doing 27 years. I'm enjoying my time. But the straw that broke the camel's back to me was when Eric Adams, unfortunately, a friend of mine, I'm sorry to say, shut down James Madison High School to put the illegals in. And that infuriated me so much. That's the day that I threw my name in the hat, and a year later, here I am.
Really?
Yeah. That's the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Yeah, well, I knew a lot of kids that went from our middle school to that school. Those kids need an education. They want to go to school. Some of them need to eat lunch in school. Some of them, their parents have to go to work. They can't stay home and babysit the kids. So, the point I'm getting at is there's a lot wrong with our state. Slowly, in the last 7 years, when we lost the Republican majority in the Senate to the Democrats, everything was on a downhill spiral with one-party rule. When you have a governor, the Senate, and the Assembly, one party, everything passes. Every ridiculous law that you can think of. We have a senator in our Senate. Every single law she introduces protects the criminals. And we have another senator. Every single law she introduces protects the illegal immigrant. In fact, she's so proud of it, she tells everybody she feels the need to remind us every day that her parents are illegal immigrants.
Wow.
Great.
Nice.
Great, that's fine. But you know what? Be grateful. Why can't you be grateful? I'm grateful. But you know what? I stood up on the Senate when another senator said, we have to put, he held a press conference in the hall and said, we have to protect the immigrants. They're immigrants just like us. And I screamed from the other side of the hall. I said, hey, Senator, are you speaking for me? Because I'm the immigrant. I'm the real immigrant. Senator, can you tell me why my wife's brothers and sisters have been waiting for 14 years for an immigration visa while everybody else skips the line? Why doesn't my family or my wife tell them, they're from Malaysia, by the way, why wouldn't I tell them to go across to Mexico or Canada and walk across the border? Why wouldn't I tell them to get a visa, come over here, and just overstay your visa? Because we do things the right way. Do I believe there should be a path to citizenship? Maybe, maybe not. Legal residency? Yes. Who? Well, I know plenty of people in my neighborhood in South Brookline. I know families that came from Ecuador, Guatemala, China, wherever it is that they're from. They're here 30 years. They raised a family. They've never been in trouble with the law. They're humble. They're nice. When you see them, when you're walking your dog or walking down the street, they're nice to you. These are the people that's not peeing on the side of the street. They're not breaking glass bottles. It's not 3 beers and it's stupid time. Those families, I believe, should have a path to permanent residency, not citizenship. We should also have a path, just like Singapore, just like Hong Kong, just like Japan. They have contracts where a pizzeria can have these recruiting agencies to go to, let's say, Guatemala. Let's use them for an example. They can have a contract and you work minimum wage for 5 years here for my pizzeria. When that contract is up, if you don't get it renewed, or if somebody else doesn't hire you, you return to your country of origin. That is, it is. It's a little different than our H-1B visa program. We do have such a program. Our H-1B, right, enables us to hire people from overseas. And by the way, when you see an Indian doctor out there, right, that came on H-1B, those are the best of the best in India. They're not your run-of-the-mill doctors. Those doctors their best, and that's how come they got hired to come here.
Bring money to medical institute too.
Yeah, okay, so I don't knock those stuff, and Indian children are just incredible students. You watch the National Spelling Bee? My daughter was a champion 3 times in her school. However, right, she's nothing comparing to those guys. But anyway, so yeah, do I believe there should be some kind of a path to permanent residency? Yes. Do I believe that ICE should come in here and get rid of our illegal criminal aliens? Absolutely. Absolutely. These are the guys that's not humble to be here. They're not grateful to be here. They're not here to be your friends. They're not here to work hard. They're here to take. They're here to steal. They're here to destroy. Laken Riley didn't have to die. We let him go. So I'm absolutely against New York State being a sanctuary state. I'm against, as a police officer, many times we have criminal aliens that we couldn't even notify ICE. You have to let them go. And it pains the police officers to know this and say, what are you talking about? I remember I was still a boss on the job in the Broolklyn South ECT unit. It's like a crime scene unit under the 6-1 precinct. When I saw the new bail reform laws, me and my boss, we thought it was a joke. And any police officer at that time in 2019 could have told you that this was going to happen. This was going to happen. Chaos. People doing everything and getting away with it. They're getting let go. So there's a lot of things wrong with our society lately. We have this influx of homeless. And where do you think those homeless people came from? It's the criminals we've been letting out on bail reform. Years ago, I always knew, interacting with the homeless people down in the Bowery, down on Allen Street, Pike Street, that a lot of those guys were like Shawshank. They got let out of jail after doing 25 years. They have no means to make a living. They become homeless. So just because they're homeless doesn't mean that there's some poor soul that ran into trouble and ran into hard times. That's far and few in between. Most of them are former career criminals. And likewise, I grilled Adams in Albany back in February when it was time for the budget talks. We called him up there. I got a chance to question him for a few minutes, about 5 minutes. I said, well, what's your sense of reasoning? Why are you building a homeless shelter 15 feet away from the subway at a time when we see people being burned alive, pushed onto the tracks? These people get pissed off. They get kicked out of the homeless shelter. They're going to go into the train. They're going to see the first kid they see or first elderly person they see and push them right over the tracks. What is your sense of reasoning? And I said to him, if you watch the clip, I said to him, right now you're retrofitting a storage unit in the Bronx into a 2,200 bed migrant shelter. Why don't you give it to our homeless first? I asked him that. I'll tell you why. Because him, de Blasio, and their cronies and their buddies found ways of turning homelessness into a huge business. And I even told him, it costs you $22,000 a month to service one homeless person. Why wouldn't you just give the guy $6,000 a month, save the 18 grand, right? And let them take care of themselves. They can do it on $6,000.
You can outbid a hotel.
The reason is that 16 grand is going somewhere else. That 18 grand is going somewhere else. It's going to somebody else's pockets along the way. Imagine a tree growing out of the ground. It's called a homeless tree, everybody. Right? And the fruit is money. And everybody's picking that fruit along the way. And the homeless is the one that actually gets the least of that money growing out of that tree. And that's some of the problems that we have. Another problem we have is all of a sudden now the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. There was a bill that we voted on in the last few days of the session this year. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It removes the power of citizens' arrest from you. I looked at it, I said, that's crazy. No, we're not going to remove citizens' arrest. I voted no. Every Republican senator voted no. About 5 or 6 moderate Democrat senators voted no. But the bill passed. Let's see if Hoco signs it. Let's see if it passes Assembly. I don't think it's going to pass Assembly. I don't think it did in the last couple of days. I didn't check on it. For some reason, it was always the other way around. The Senate had more common sense than the Assembly. Now it seems like it's the other way around. Like with Otis. Oh, I shouldn't say his name. A senator, right, that accident on Ocean Parkway where that female mowed down and killed the family of 3.
Yeah.
Well, he wants to punish the car. He wants to punish the car. Just like when there's a mass shooting, the left wants to punish the gun, right? He wants to slow the cars down. So if there's a car that gets caught running a red light or a speeding camera in a multitude of violations over the last, let's say, 18 months, a certain amount, he wants to slow the car down. He wants the car to have a limit in it so that it can't go over 25 miles per hour. Strangely, a few bills before that he had mentioned, it was in regards to reckless driving. What he said was a reckless driver is always going to be a reckless driver, no matter what car he's driving or where he's driving. So I said, you know, you mentioned that a reckless driver is always going to be a reckless driver. Likewise, a speeding driver is always going to be a speeding driver. He can put that car in somebody else's name. He can rent the car. He can drive somebody else's car. He's still going to be a speeding driver. You slowing that car, all you're doing is punishing that car, and it's useless. We got to revamp it. You know, put a fine on that driver. Arrest the owner of the car, and get the information of who was driving this car going through this light all this time. Right? Make his insurance rates a little higher. Right? So there's a multitude of things that we can do to slow people down. But slowing the car down is definitely not the answer. There's going to be times when you're going to need that speed to avoid accidents. There's